Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of South Africa's Constitution, Lawson Naidoo, is now joining us live. Lawson, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. First of all, let me just quickly get an assessment from your end around how the elections went yesterday.
Good morning, Aldrin. Thank you very much. Yes, look, it was good to see large numbers of people coming out to vote. Clearly there were glitches with the operations at many voting stations, slow processes, manual processes being used, and so on. And I think the issue of the new or the slightly changed electoral system with 3 ballot papers caught many people by surprise, including, it seems, the IEC, in terms of the time that it would take to process voters, and as we see now in terms of the counting of the ballot papers. But all in all, I think a good day for democracy in South Africa. Elections are always going to have glitches. But if there's one thing I'd want to highlight in regard to all of this, Aldrin, is the fact that the budget of the IEC has been cut tremendously by 500 million rands over the last 2 years. And I think this was reflected in what we saw amongst the long queues yesterday.
Yeah, it's actually an issue that we will be discussing a bit later on with Zimbali Mncube, who is from the Institute of Economic Justice, because it also speaks to the impact that these austerity measures have had on institutions like the IEC as well as various government institutions. But let's speak about corruption. Some of the voters speaking to our reporters yesterday raised this as a major issue for them, some of them voting against the corruption. What would be the most important elements heading into the new administration that would be elected, the new administration that would be sworn in, to say that this is how we need to deal with corruption?
Indeed, I think the issue of corruption is something that has been pervasive in South Africa for a long time now. When President Ramaphosa came into power in 2018, he promised to clean up governance in society, within the public sector, to take extensive measures that will deal with both public and private sector corruption. And we have really not seen the fruits of that as yet. We still see high levels of corruption. And as I say, it impacts on all aspects of our society, from service delivery to job creation, investor confidence, economic growth. And I think this is the foremost issue in the minds of voters as they went to the polls yesterday. And we really hope that the new administration that comes in post these elections will take the concerns of the electorate into account and really seriously prioritize the issue of combating corruption across all sectors of our society.
And some people think that corruption is a victimless crime. But yesterday what we saw is people speaking about promises that were made to them about infrastructure that will be built around them, promises of homes that will be built for them, and sometimes the money disappearing.
Indeed, as I say, corruption, it has an impact on every aspect of our society, whether it's the provision of housing, education, clinics, water, through to the impact that it has on investor confidence, on securing licenses from relevant government departments to pursue economic activities. This is something that really corrodes the fabric of our society, undermines our democracy. Yesterday, we saw a vibrant expression of South Africa's democracy, a democracy that we cherish and value, and yet these corrupt actors diminish the value of that and undermine the essential tenets of the Constitution and the constitutional province to create a society where human dignity is prioritized.
When the president delivered his State of the Nation address in February, he spoke about the implementation of the recommendations of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry's report. And amongst those issues, that the recommendation was that there should be an anti-corruption unit that should be established. I don't know if we have reached that particular point as yet, but how do we prevent another state capture from happening?
Well, the president has signed into law the NPA Amendment Act, which institutionalizes the investigating directorate within the NPA. That's an important step, but it cannot be the only step. We have to also bear in mind that the president established a National Anti-Corruption Advisory Committee almost 2 years ago, and that structure is looking at various institutional arrangements to strengthen the fight against corruption. But what is of concern in this regard, Aldrin, is very recently when the president signed the Electoral Matters Amendments Act into law, which made sweeping changes to the party funding regime. The Anti-Corruption Council, the NACAC, cautioned the president not to do so because it would create a loophole for private funding to political parties to fall under the radar, to not be required to be disclosed. And the president ignored those warnings from the NACAC. So one must question the extent to which the president really takes seriously this commitment to fight corruption.
And then finally, Lawson, also when it comes to individuals, the rank and file right at the bottom, the grassroots levels. Yesterday I was actually saying that driving past an intersection, there was a roadblock, motorists were being stopped, and one was a taxi driver that was being stopped, and it seemed as though that he was actually trying to bribe one of the Metro Police officers. Let's speak about corruption that is now forming part of the very fabric of our society. It has become systemic.
Indeed, it has become systemic. It's become so pervasive that many people, many otherwise law-abiding citizens, see it as normal to pay a traffic officer for the cool drink when we get stopped at roadblocks or for traffic offences. And this is something that needs to be combated, because that's the level at which it may start, but it then escalates and has a much greater impact. So we need much greater levels of public awareness about the impact of our actions when we conduct ourselves in that way. Whether it be taxi drivers or other motorists on the road, it undermines the rule of law. It undermines respect for the laws of the country. We must be a law-abiding society. We have a constitutional framework that requires us all to behave in a manner that respects rules and laws. And if we try and circumvent those for our own convenience by simply paying a small bribe, thinking that it is of no consequence, well, we're sorely mistaken, because all of that adds up and creates the climate in which those who are seeking bribes feel very emboldened in order to ask for them. And then it becomes a normal part of our society. That's something that we need to curb. We need an aggressive campaign to say that people who are either caught offering or giving bribes will be prosecuted.
Lawson Naidoo, thank you so much for your time. Lawson Naidoo is the Executive Director there of CASAC. Still